boys. Tammy raised them. She really did. I was out of town all the time. My wife basically took infant boys. We have two of them. Infant boys through adolescence into adulthood. My sons are good husbands, they're good fathers, and they're good citizens, and that's on her. She did an amazing job. She really did. But that was about a year into our marriage. I got home from the road one day, and she says, "Get over here, I need to talk to you." And I sit down, and she says, "Now, don't get angry. When nobody knows you better than your wife. So when she prefaces the conversation with 'don't get angry,' she knows you're going to get angry. I mean, and you lie to your wife, okay, I won't, because you want to hear what she has to say." So you're already sitting at 50. You're simmering right here. So anyway, she says, when you come home from the road, you disrupt everything in this house. You just like a bull in a china shop. We have a way of doing things. We have a rhythm to our life here. You come in, you disrupt the entire rhythm. So from here on out, when you come home from the road, don't do anything. Nothing. I mean, what do you mean? Nothing. Do the outside, do the lawn, do the landscape, but nothing in the house. You okay? I go, yeah. Anyway, she leaves. And I'm sitting there thinking, why did she think I'd get angry at that? What did she think I was going to say? No, I'm doing the laundry. So for all these years, I never really did anything. And now all of a sudden, they leave. Empty nest. She's devastated. I thought that was the whole point. Raise your kids and get them out as soon as possible. I was brainwashed to leave my home at 18. Every time I complained at all as a child, my parents said the exact same thing every time. These mashed potatoes are cold. When you're 18 and you have your own place, you can have all the hot mashed potatoes you want, Jeffrey. I just assumed 18 you left. They got me a suitcase for my 18th birthday. I said, where am I going to go? I don't have any place to live. I don't have a job. You'll figure it out. We love you, son. You know. Who knew you could live at home till you're 50 and become a U.S. Senator? Holy cow. So I had to go on Google and read blogs written by women who wrote about empty nest. And anyway, it's a real thing, you know. And women nurture for that long, and then they leave, and now they have a hole in their soul, and they're looking for something, a new nurturing project. And the only one standing there is their husband. I don't want to be a project. I don't want to be anything. And it started with something simple. I got up one day at 7 in the morning. She's been up since 5. And I walk into the kitchen. You know, you're rubbing stuff out of your eyes. And she looks at me and says, "What do you want for dinner?" It's 7 a.m. I don't know what I want. I don't know. Dinner? I don't know. Hot mashed potatoes? That would be nice. It got so bad within 3 days, I couldn't get out of my bed. I was paralyzed in the morning until I had an answer to that stupid dinner question. She's going to ask. I don't know what I want. And what killed me, no matter what we decided at 7 a.m., we never had at 6 p.m., ever. I thought we were having spaghetti. I don't want spaghetti. You wanted it at 7 a.m.?
I'm excited about our podcast today because this is our guest is someone that we've been looking forward to interviewing for a while.
Yes.
And his name is Jeff Allen. He is a comedian and he is a hit with all ages. He's been on so many things. I mean, I can't even list them all. America's Got Talent, Netflix, Amazon. He's been in some 1-hour comedy special called Happy Wife, Happy Life. Now
Which is true.
Which is true. Happy, you do. Yeah. Do we have a happy life?
Sure.
Sure. Anyway, welcome to the Parent Pivot Podcast. Jeff Allen, we're so glad to have you with us. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, so my first question is, I mean, did you grow up as a little kid going, I want to be a comedian someday? I mean, how did this start?
Not at all. I saw my brother was a musician. I was about 15 or 16, and I was at a place where he was performing, and two comedians opened for him, and I thought, wow, that would be kind of cool. Where could you do that? Where do you learn to do it? Shockingly, it's not part of career day in most high schools. You know, they don't have a table set up with a booth. And
yeah, no, they don't.
And so anyway, about 6 or 7 years later, I was working for a jewelry company in Chicago, and somebody said, "Let's go to the Comedy Cottage." And I said, "What's that?" And they said, "It's a club where comedians get up one after another." It's 1978. And that was it. I was hooked. That was August. I think November was when I worked the courage up to at least try it for the first time. And it was awful, just awful. And my wife said to me years later, she goes, "What made you go back?" Because most normal people, when they get abused and humiliated to that level,
Yeah.
just go, this is, But I love the verse in the Bible. It's one that I've lived by. As the dog returns to his vomit, the man returns to his folly.
There you
So,
go.
You return to the
yeah,
vomit.
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of been the story of my entire life. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So you've been doing that since 1978. Wow.
Yes, I have. And
That
I
was
had
like
about
my,
a year and a half into all of that. So some club owner came to me. I was still really bad. He says, "You'll never make a living at this, so get over it." And
yeah,
I
yeah.
go, "Thank you." Anybody who's ever made anything of their life has had some jerk tell them they'll never make anything of their life. So you're my jerk. I'll tell the story, and I'm still telling it. 45
Nice.
years later. So
Wow, that's awesome. Well, we just played a clip at the front of our podcast. So if you're watching
yeah,
on YouTube, you need to go listen to the podcast. And it was about the empty nesters because we do talk to parents of adult children, which you
yeah.
have a couple of boys and things like that. So we're kind of curious and interested in what you've learned about being an empty nester and
Yeah.
some of the funny things that have gone on and things.
And it's
Well,
a big part of your bit,
Yeah.
actually, is,
Well, it is. It was interesting when the boys left. I didn't realize because I was gone all the time. I mean, I was gone 200 days a year.
Wow.
Tammy did the yeoman's
wow.
work of raising those children.
Yeah.
And she told me once, and in all seriousness, she said all I ever wanted to be was a mom. She had
Mhm.
really kind of a horrific I would say horrific, but she had a bad upbringing, and
Yep.
she
Yep.
wanted to be the mom that she never had. So when we had these boys, that was her life. And me, I
Mhm.
was brainwashed to leave my parents' house at 18. Every complaint I made was met with the same response. Mom, these mashed potatoes are cold. Well, when you're 18 and you have your own place, you can have all the hot mashed potatoes you want. And
Yep.
so anyway, I just thought that was the goal. You get your kids out functioning and on their own. So my oldest joined the military at 19, I think, just out of high school.
Wow.
And 6 years he was gone, and then he came back. And then they're very funny. She was, again, you're never not their parents.
Right. Right.
So he's living with us, and she's all over him about getting his oil changed on his car. We're not going to buy you a new engine. Get your oil changed. Anyway,
Wow.
one day I go downstairs to get him, and there's a note. I'm leaving, and I'm going to stay with an old army buddy in Florida. And anyway, good riddance. Anyway, I go upstairs and I said, "Well, he's gone." And she goes, "What are you talking about?" So anyway, he called like 2 minutes later. And I said, "Where are you at?" He goes, "I'm in Atlanta. I'm running away from home." I go, "You're 27 years old. You can't run away from home at 27. You're actually getting on with your life, and we're proud of you." And Tammy's sitting in the garage crying. I go, "What are you crying
Crying.
about? That was the whole point, right? You wanted me to go down." And anyway, I understood. I had to go on, and I read blogs written by women who wrote
Yep.
about empty nest to try to get my head around what she was going through because I couldn't.
Yeah.
And then it made sense to me. Meaning, point, and purpose to life. That's it. When they walked out the door, what am I going to do now?
Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be like if tomorrow I lost my voice, and now what do I do with I'm 68. I mean, I could figure it out, but what do you do with the rest of your life? So
Or what if you lose your sense of humor? What happens then?
well, gosh, I don't even know if I have a sense of humor. I just, this is just cheaper than therapy for me. So anyway, I kind of understood it, and then where we kind of butted heads was they looked for something new to nurture, something to fill
Right.
the
Yeah.
void, and the husband is the only logical choice. All of a sudden, she wanted to take parts of my life that she never was involved with before, and I would push back as I
Yeah.
don't need to be anybody's project. So
Yeah, I get told every morning you didn't put lotion on your face. I mean, what man gets up in the morning for the first 30, 40, 50 years of life and goes, "Oh, my skin's
no.
kind of a little wrinkly. I need to put lotion on my face."
Well, the fact that she's talking to me
You
at
too.
7:30 in the morning, that was a change. We had a morning ritual where I don't talk to anybody. I mean, I come out, I say, "Good morning, sweetheart," kiss her, go to the fridge, and I get my first can of caffeine. And and until that can is finished, I liken it to
Right.
starting a car in a
Yep.
Chicago winter. Rrr,
Yep.
rrr, rrr,
Yeah.
That's my brain. Every sip is like, it's the crank of the key. So just leave me alone. Give me 30 minutes and then we can talk about whatever you want. So one morning out of nowhere, she goes, what do you want for dinner? And I go, it's 7:30 in the morning. I don't know what I want for dinner. And she goes, why are you talking to me like that? I go, it's the first time you've ever asked me in 20-something years. Who thinks the dinner are we eating at 8 a.m.? I don't know. Just give me a second to wake up. Come on. Leave me alone. I don't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
And went on for within 4 days. I couldn't get out of my bed in the morning till I had answered that stupid dinner question because I know she's going to ask. And it didn't matter what we decided at 7:30 in the morning. We never had it at 6 p.m. ever, not once.
Yeah.
So did you guys eventually get into a good rhythm, though, with just the two of you?
Yeah, I started doing my morning prayer. I got a book. It's interesting. Someone just did an interview with me called Christian Family Life or something, that magazine.
Okay.
And before I left, he handed me a book called The First Hour, written by Mark Koch. And it's 18 prayers that a man should start his day with. And then a proverb, and then just read some New Testament. But it's the 18 prayers that really kind of, I go out, bring my caffeine with me, and I start reading. It's called A God Family Career, 18 prayers. And it's a good way to start. It takes about 20, 25 minutes, and then a Proverbs, another 5 minutes. And for the first half hour, I'm at least I don't have to converse with anybody but my creator, and he understands me. He's not going to ask me what I want for dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He already knows what you can have for dinner.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I'm grateful that we have food to put on our plates. So
yeah. So how has been the transition? I mean, you guys have probably been empty nesters for how long now? Like a couple decades.
Let's see. Aaron is 40. And he left at 27. So 13 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So other than your wife having a difficult time, I mean, what other kind of transitions, things did you have to deal with? It sounds like you were like, since you were out at 18 and your parents like going, yeah, get going, go make your own hot mashed potatoes. How did your kids do with that? How did you do with that? Because from a husband standpoint, we're like, yeehaw.
Right.
I have more disposable income.
Well, that's what I said. I said, it's amazing how much money you find when you convince your kids college is overrated, And,
Yeah.
But it's they're never not your children. It's interesting. My son asked me once recently. He said, "What's so different about grandchildren?" I said, "Well, first of all, whatever 38 years ago, I was a completely different human being. I was an angry, bitter, jaded, cynical. I just kind of walked into this completely naive to what the responsibilities were.
Yep.
I was gone. I missed everything. There were no cell phones to at least see it on a cell phone.
Yeah.
Your son talked today, first time. Your son walked today. Your son,
Right.
I mean, it was like, yeah. When I married Tammy, Aaron was my. He was 2 when I married her, and I never used the word stepson. He's always been my son.
Yeah.
And I missed all that. He was already kind of wandering around, and but when Ryan was born, the panic hit, at about 6 months, and that's when I quit drinking. But it was so. He says, "What's so different about it?" I said, "Well, first of all," I said, "What is the first thing I usually ask you when we talk?" He goes, "Well, about my job." And I go, "You know why I ask you about your job? Because if you lose it, I know where you're moving, and I don't want you living with me again. I just,
That's a
want to
good
make sure
idea.
you're employed, you're gainfully employed, you're functioning." And second of all, I said, "Son, I still worry about you. I still pray every night before I go to bed for your well-being and your and that you're at peace with whatever you're doing in life." And those kids, I don't worry about them at all because I know you're a good man, you're a good father. And I said, I never lied awake one night worrying about my grandchildren. And when they're here with me, I just spoil them rotten to the. It's funny, we had them, all 4 of them. We take them in the summer for 2 weeks, and day 12 usually is about the time I stand up in the middle of a movie and go, "I'm on my second to last nerve. You don't want to see me on my last nerve." And And I told Tammy when they leave after 14 days, I go, that's so perfect. It's just a perfect 4 kids for 2 weeks.
That's a lot.
What's their age range?
11, 10, 8, and 8. So both our kids had kids about the same time. So it's
So
nice.
they're self-sufficient, the
Yeah,
kids, for the most part.
they really are, and they get along really well. And we want them to be friends, and because of cell phones and FaceTime and stuff, they do keep in touch on and off throughout the year.
Yeah. We have our grandkids. I mean, we've got 4 with a 5th on the way, but we have, of our 4 kids, the 3 boys live on the West Coast, and our daughter lives here in Georgia with us and stuff. So our oldest son is real good. In fact, we just FaceTimed. Yesterday was Lila's 5th birthday, and we got to watch her open her gifts and talk to her and go, oh my gosh, she's grown up so fast. So yeah, he's real intentional, real good. And the same thing with you. We don't worry about, the grandkids, because we know we got good kids that are taking good care of them. But that was well said.
Yeah, but you never stop, like you said, you never stop being a parent, and you never stop worrying.
No,
about
my grandmother, when I got saved at 40, and she called me in tears. And she said, I've been praying for my son, my dad. I've been praying for his kids for 40 years. And I'm just glad to see one of them make the commitment and come to Christ. And so I said to her, I go, thank you, Grandma, for not giving up. And you never know when those prayers will be answered, or again, it's not my job to worry about stuff I have no control over. But
and wasn't there a time where your dad lived with you? I thought that was part of your comedy too. Her
father.
It was her dad.
Oh my gosh, he saved my life. He became her new nurturing project. Yeah,
the pressure was off you.
She took over the man's life, and I left me alone. I was, everything kind of went back to my what I call normal, and she just took him down to the YMCA, made him exercise, made him walk at night. One night he face planted. I mean, that was bad. Then we had to go to the emergency room. And I always tell audiences, if you and your wife have to take a bleeding senior to the emergency room, you get your story straight before you arrive at the emergency. You don't want to be picking, you don't want any disagreements on what happened. Yeah. We wound up in another room with police interviewing us, and it was not pretty.
Kidding.
Seriously?
No, elder abuse. I heard that. I went, wait a minute. You think I love that man? He saved my life. No, I would never punch him. No, he just.
We actually, this is a good time to just interject real quick. We're going to do a little quick bandwagon thing for us. We're going to be some guest workshop hosts at the Grandparenting Summit through Legacy Coalition in February of 2025. So if you're watching or listening, look for that. We'll put a link in our show notes here. It's going to be in Birmingham, Alabama for the live one. And we're going to get this, Jeff, we're going to talk about the sandwich generation. So it would be those of us who have adult kids and are helping take care of elderly parents at the same time.
Or even kids in the home still.
So it's like 3 generations living together under one roof.
It's funny. Yeah. We talk about this a lot, Tammy and I. We used to a lot. We don't so much anymore. I grew up in Chicago, and those old brownstone homes used to house 3 generations.
Yeah.
And now they're broken into 3 different apartments. But that was what, to me, the older I get, the more I realize how important family is to the culture, to the country.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's such a bad thing anymore.
Right.
Tammy, in a heartbeat, would have our kids living with us with the grandkids. We would add an addition to the house and let them have their own wing or whatever, and we would take care of them. We would watch them. We would work together and raise. And no, I don't see. It's funny. Initially, it's unfortunate that the circumstances that lead to these things are usually not very good. The kids are either involved with illegal, drugs and stuff, or they've dropped the ball. But I want to have an influence on my grandchildren. I'm wiser than I was when I was raising my children, and I believe, and my oldest son, who's doing his own mental health work. He came back from Iraq with PTSD, and then in the context of all of that, he realized he had some issues with me being gone all the time and stuff. And then he recently reached out to me to tell me he understands now.
Yeah.
You know,
No, you're exactly right on when you look through the Bible from, Genesis through everything, I mean, families of all generations live together. And when you go to other cultures, I just got back recently from Bangkok, Thailand. Other cultures live together in a very honoring way. And every time I go to New York, I will always strike up a conversation with my Lyft driver. Hey, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Sri Lanka. I'm from Pakistan. I'm from here. And I'll say, how'd you get here? They tell me, and they're living with family of three generations, and everybody's contributing to pay for the enormous amount of rent because they can't afford to live there.
Right.
But there are no, issues. I mean, as long as you've got healthy boundaries, you're not getting into each other's business, and everybody respects that. It's
the Western culture has a tendency to find shame with it. And it's really how 90% of the world operates is
Absolutely.
multicultural
And again,
living. And
you're right. Growing up, I mean, and as a young married, I would never want to live with my parents.
Yeah.
And out of, like you said, I want to be self-sufficient. And we've thought about it. It was interesting. We were, my kid, because of the housing situation, he's a blue collar worker, and he was pre-approved. Listen to this number. He was pre-approved by the VA for a $500,000 home, and couldn't get one in Montana. He said the people from California and New York that are coming
are all moving there,
and they're just jacking. They're going, "I'll take it. I'll give you 50,000 over asking." And you can't compete with it. And so I said to Tammy, we've been blessed. I said it would be nice that we could purchase a place, maybe get them in it and rent it, and then sell it to them, a couple years down the road or something. And we started looking at it and realized that it's really it's so inflated that it'd be a bad investment. It really would be.
Because at some point it's got to even out.
Yeah, it does. And it has in my lifetime twice. 1988 and 2008.
Yeah.
So it seems like every 20 years. So
that means we're due for another.
So we're 2028. I'm expecting 2028 will be another collapse.
Yeah. We actually live on 2 acres here in Swanee, Georgia, and we always look out at our backyard. We always see a bunch of deer, but we also thought, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to put some other buildings out there and let our kids, have a place to live and still have their privacy.
Save something,
Yeah. It's a different world. The American dream is not easily attainable as much as it used to be and things like that.
No, and I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing. Like we were just talking about, is it bad that the kids have to, again, you don't want to do it against their will.
Right.
No.
But Tammy, I guarantee you, she would welcome these kids in a heartbeat. Now,
and then for us, we actually have our daughter, her husband, and their 6-month-old living with us. We've mentioned that a lot on our broadcast. And they're in the struggling actor. They're trying to make it here in Atlanta. They're working hard. They're working 2, 3, 4, and 5 jobs. And I think the difference is when you see responsible adult kids working their butts off to try to make a living, I'm happy to do a lot of child care, whatever we need to do to take care of that. It's when your adult child's living in the basement, not working, not doing job, playing video games, that becomes
then you're crippling them. Then you're the one enabling and crippling them.
Exactly.
And that's a different issue. I had a cousin move in with us, and Tammy, he had issues, and finally Tammy threw him out. She goes, "You'll never do it." I go, "No, I won't. I love him too much, and I'm enabling. Tammy, I know I'm enabling him. I know it, but I can't help it. I just the thought of just putting him out on the streets is not." Anyway, she threw him out, and I think it was like 3 years later. I don't even know how her mind works, but we're eating dinner. She goes, "If I didn't throw him out, your cousin would still be living in our basement." And I go, "Where's this coming from? My God, he's been gone 3 years." And I said, "Yeah, you're right. He would be. He would be, and probably dead of cirrhosis because he was unable to control his."
Wow.
They're drinking.
Yeah. And so anyway, I said, "Yeah, I'm grateful you did what you did." But
So I want to take a little turn here. We've been talking about, being an empty nester and living generationally in a home. You've got a book out called "Are We There Yet?"
Yes.
And things, which we're going to put down in the show notes. If you're listening, to go on Amazon and get a copy. It talks about how God rescued you from alcoholism and despair through the book of Ecclesiastes. Can we go down that road and tell us about that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I was in a program. I got into a 12-step program at about a year into our marriage.
Mm,
I had spanked my 6-month-old in the crib for crying.
mm,
And that when she sat on the end of the bed that night and fed him, and I realized what I had done, and it cut through
Mm.
everything that I was
Yeah.
on, from the alcohol, the cocaine, all the stuff that I was on, and just the shame that washed over me. And I decided, I said, I'll get help. And I had gone to Alcoholics Anonymous 5 years earlier, and I wasn't as bad as those people. So
Right. That's what
I
we tell
figured I'd
ourselves.
go back out and work on my testimony some more. And anyway, she took me to the meeting and they said, pray. I said, to what? And that
mm,
was the start of the journey for me. 7 or 8 years later, through self-help, therapy, New Age, Buddhism, eventually I wound up on Ayn Rand humanism.
mm,
And I've often said this, if I wasn't a Bible-believing Christian, I'd be an Ayn Rand objectivist.
Hmm.
I thought there was at least a system there that you could rationally get through life.
mm,
But it was funny, after becoming a Christian 6 or 7 years later, I read Atlas Shrugged again, and I told Tammy, there's no children, there's no joy, there's no colors. There's no colors to her writing. It's all black and white because it's all reason and logic. And it's
Hmm.
just a very rigid way to live. But anyway, I met a man that on the road, he was a businessman, and our marriage was imploding, and we had
mm,
everything. I mean, it's as if God systematically took away anything that would distract me
mm.
from putting meaning to it.
Right.
Because Tammy would shake me and go, why can't you, why not us? And I go, but what if you get T-boned at a red light? And then my meaning point and purpose, again, it's the empty nest thing. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
when you attach your meaning to life to something earthly. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, that's kind of where I was sitting. And then all of a sudden I meet this Christian, he puts the Bible in my hand. And the first sermon I ever listened to, a year and a half into our friendship, by the way, I was collecting tapes for about a year and a half, at least a year. I had piles of manila envelopes with Bible studies in them. And he never asked me, are you listening to him? Are
Hmm.
he ended every phone conversation with, how's your marriage? Not too good. And he'd go, we pray for you. And I go, why? And he'd say, we just believe marriages are ordained from God. And
Hmm.
Mm.
he didn't
Hmm.
put you two together to create another life and then move on.
Hmm.
So is it all right if we pray for you? I go, I don't care. It meant nothing to me,
Yeah.
And anyway, eventually Tammy gathered up the kids and said, I'm going to Ohio. You're draining me. I can't imagine any woman listening to this being married to a man who was constantly I was constantly in my head, and
Mm,
just couldn't figure life out, why anything mattered. I'd
Hmm.
get these tastes of things, and it would quench me for a bit, and then the questions would start. What if it goes away? What if it disappears? What if it? So all that to lead up to the first sermon I ever listened to was Ecclesiastes, and I heard 1:1, meaningless, meaningless, all in life is meaningless.
Hmm.
And I went,
yeah.
yes, that was my conclusions.
Mm,
Thank you. And I went, that's in the Bible? That truth, that deep truth,
Wow.
sent me into the Bible deep. I felt
this
I knew that to be true.
Yeah.
There couldn't have been
validation for you.
and after studying the Bible for 20 plus years, I can't think of another verse that would have spoke to me more than that,
Mm,
Wow.
because I knew that to be true. And the conclusion was at the end of that sermon, life without God will have no meaning. Without meaning to your life, there's no purpose. And without purpose, suicide. And I thought, that's it. Meaning, purpose, and point to life is everything. And if it
Yeah.
isn't fixed, and if it isn't permanently fixed in your life, then you're a victim of your circumstances, and your meaning and point to life will constantly be in flux. So
mm,
if I put my faith in Christ, and I have, that will never change. My
Amen.
circumstances will. She
Yep.
may walk out on me tomorrow. I'm doing everything I can to not
Right.
give her a reason,
mm,
I'm paying attention. I'm loving her. I'm respecting her. I'm honoring her to the best of my ability. And if she still chooses to walk out, I still have Christ. And for whatever reason, I got to get on my knees and accept that, and go, all right, what is your will in all of this? And I can't control her or my children or my grandchildren, but I can control how I treat them and what I choose to do every morning when I wake up, and that's not to have a drink today.
Amen.
And it sounds trite and cliche, but like I said, I'm a very simple-minded human being, and I try to keep everything I can, simple.
No, that's powerful. I mean, that's a powerful testimony. And I love that is the verse that validated you. I mean, nobody would expect, because, John 3:16 is what people say, right? It's
right. Well, it's so funny when I started sharing in churches, people would come to me so confused. God used Ecclesiastes to lead you to Jesus. And I went, yeah, I don't know. What's the problem? He goes, that's a cynical book. Well, you didn't know me like he knew me, because believe me,
yeah.
And what I like about the story that you told, Jeff, is your friend who was praying for you and things. He was never beating you over the head or saying you need to know the 4 spiritual laws. You need to say the prayer this way. You need to start going to church. You need to read your Bible. You need to man up. You need to do this, that, which becomes religion. And it always frustrates me. It's like when he left you alone because he knew the Holy Spirit was at work, and he trusted the Holy Spirit to, at whatever point that was going to be. It took you, like you said, a year or so of reading those tapes. And we tend to get in our head, even as we're talking to our grandkids or our kids who aren't walking with the Lord, it's like, we have to do something to get them to Jesus. It's like, no, your grandmother prayed for you for how long?
40 years. And you got to live it. And that he lived it. I saw the way he treated his wife. I saw the way he behaved in public. I saw a life that was attractive to me.
Right.
He was a strong male,
Yeah.
And
are you guys still friends?
Oh gosh, yes. He saved my finances. An interesting story. He was a wealthy businessman, sold his company to some foreign entity for millions. And anyway, that's why he was out doing comedy. It's just something he wanted to do. And now he had, no reason not to. I mean, the money wasn't an issue. And then he had the idea that he would build a theater where he could put on clean comedians.
Nice.
And he lost everything. He built this theater in Pigeon Forge, beautiful place. I worked there for 3 months, I think.
Wow.
It made me the comic I am today, for sure.
Yeah.
When you're doing breakfast shows for 12 people.
Oh, wow.
And he said that he doesn't want me jacking around with the crowd. He goes, I want you to do your show. Do the best job you can for these people. And I learned to work for no laughs, And it's helped me out tremendously doing corporate shows. I did one for like 17 bankers once. And I called my manager. I go, man, I'm good. I really am good at what I do. I said, believe me, there was a time in my life where I would have just abhorred the job. I would have made fun of it. I would have let them know how disappointed I was in the fact that there was only 17 people there. But I learned that, they don't care. The audience doesn't care. They just want your best. And
yeah.
So he lost everything. He couldn't bring the numbers in. And I think I never saw him complain, never heard him complain. And I think his biggest confusion was he felt that it was God's will that he built this place. He really did. He prayed on it, got the financing, did all the stuff he needed to do, and wound up. I asked him. He said the only worry that money affords you, the only thing money affords you is not to ever worry about money. That's it. All the other worries, what you have with family, kids, all the other worries of life are there. So he said, I never thought I'd have to worry about money again. So all of a sudden he was 50 something and he had to start over.
Wow.
And he started a financial planning company. He goes, what better job for a guy than somebody who's lost everything to help people? And he's a people person. He was one of those people. You probably know people. You may be one of these people. But he'd walk into a pro shop, walk out with 3 business cards, and they would be friends for life. Every time he'd go back in the area, he'd call them up and he'd eat dinner with them and whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm just not wired that way. It's anyway. So to watch him go through that, and then my manager called him eventually and said, Jeff needs some help financially. He's not doing too well. saving it. I was making it, but I wasn't saving it. And he goes, I know Jeff doesn't have the assets you require to get involved in your funds and stuff, but could you help him out? He said, absolutely. And he took me, and now we're pretty much set, retirement wise, and grateful for that, because somebody once said, if you took all the wealth of the world, divided it up equally among everybody, within 10 years, it would be right back where it is.
Yeah.
'Cause
Exactly.
there are tools, there are people who just know how to accumulate and hold on to, and I'm not one of them. Tammy used to say, you're one of those people that if you saving is like you can walk in a room, throw all your money in the air, and whatever stays up there you save, and whatever hits the ground you spend. So I don't have that tool, whatever it is, or that discipline. But
no, I love the fact that when we find people in life who just love you for who you are, not anything that you have, and then they're just very relaxed and chill about life, because we know who we are and whose we are, and we don't have to worry about resources and things like that. I'm just stewarding like our property here. We did an Airbnb for like a year and a half, and we prayed that every time someone stepped foot on this property that they'd experience shalom and the peace of God.
Right.
And so it was just open to the public, and everybody loved it. They loved the deer and things like that. And we just stewarded the property. And we've had a house church here for 3 years, and we let the kids, the 20 and 30 somethings, they wrote on our walls. They wrote scripture verses and declarations, and we had peeled wallpaper back, and we just gave them markers certain nights, and they wrote on the walls, and we looked at it, after a while, and went, you know what? We don't really need to redo the walls here.
We don't need to fix our walls.
We're just going to leave it. Well, we eventually have, and the church has moved on and stuff, but it's like, when you steward things and hold things loosely, even all your resources, and Ecclesiastes talks about that.
Right.
And things, but
it's a vapor. It's not going to last, and you're going to hand it off to the generation behind you, and they're going to be ungrateful because they didn't earn it. And very rarely, it's funny when you think about. I was talking to Tammy about this whole election thing and stuff, and I said, what I see in Trump is somebody trying to just hang on to his legacy, his name. That's the only thing he's got to hand down to his kids, and they've done everything they can to impugn it and destroy it. And think of how many names in American, Carnegie, Rothschilds, Vanderbilts, and maybe Gates. I don't know if Gates will last.
Yeah, Rockefellers.
3 generations, Rockefellers. Yeah, I mean, there's like 4 in the history of our country. I mean, it's so they do. They tend to. What did Mark Twain say? At your funeral, they'll lament you for an hour and forget you for a lifetime.
There you go.
Truly, yeah.
So I'm trying to plant, eternity into my children's hearts. I'm hoping, I'm praying. They were raised with it. The Bible's very clear that if you raise them right, we try to, that they'll return. And our granddaughter, 10-year-old, is really, I think she's ready to be baptized. She had said something.
Wow.
We take her whenever we can. She's coming in this Saturday. I'm leaving town. But Tammy takes them to church, and she sits with us in what we call big girl church. And she saw the baptismals one, like 15 people getting baptized. And we thought that the emotion of all of that would drive her up. And I didn't want that. I want her. And I leaned over. I said, do you want to get baptized? She said, no. And I said, you'll know. I said, Jesus will move you and you'll know. And then a couple of weeks later or something, she said to Tammy, she goes, I think I want to be baptized, Mimi. We got her a Bible for teens. She's only 10, but she's smart. She's been reading since she was 4 years old.
Wow.
And she asked a question on her way to church, Papa, if Jesus is God, who made Jesus? And I go, wow, that's a great question. I go, you keep asking those because I don't have the answer. I said, the bookshelves are filled with people trying to figure that out. But I said,
Let
girl,
me
you
explain
just,
the Trinity. Yeah.
I said, you just keep asking and seeking. And I said, Jesus will make himself to you. We always want an explanation, but what we really need is a revelation. When that comes, you'll know.
Yeah.
You'll know, and we will be right there with you.
Yeah.
And my prayer is always that she leads my son, her father, back to his childhood faith, because he was our little evangelical for years.
Yeah.
And he had a friend die at 19,
And it
tragic
changed.
death. who was an atheist. He used to come into Austin would come in and go, Mr. Jeff, I'm an atheist. I go, Austin, bless your heart, but you're not smart enough to be an atheist. Why don't you shoot for agnosticism? And he goes, what's that? And I said, that proves my point right there, if you don't even know what an agnostic is. But yeah, I said, you don't know. That's what you know. That's what you're sure about, is that you don't know.
Yeah.
And I said, leave your mind open a crack that maybe the God of the Bible is true.
Yeah.
And anyway, he died tragically at 19 years old on a glacier in New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
And
What a way to go.
He fell into the crevice, and they were there for hours. And Tammy looked it up on the beauty of the internet. She read the article from the New Zealand newspaper, and the two of those kids were Bible-believing Christians. And I told my son, when he asked me, he goes, is Austin in hell now because he didn't believe? And I said, first of all, heaven and hell are not my domain, so God will let in whoever he wants to let in. Second of all, I believe this in my heart, that God will honor in the next life what you chose in this one. If you want to be apart from him here, he'll give you the same honor. He'll honor that choice in the next life. But I said the good news is he was in that crevice for 3 hours with Bible-believing Christians, and you have no idea what was discussed.
That's true.
And I said, believe it or not, there's tens of thousands, if not millions, of people in heaven because of deathbed
It's like the thief on the cross that was next to Jesus, and he didn't pray the 4 spiritual laws or anything. He just said, "I believe who you are, and just today you'll be with me in paradise." So he knows he's dying off. So I believe those lots. So
absolutely,
yeah. And I think that message is one that a lot of our listeners need to hear: is the belief that I raise my kids a certain way and that they'll come back to it. And it sounds like you're holding on to that.
I'm clinging to it. I mean, I hold true to the words. The words are there. They're pretty clear.
Yeah.
And that's not my job. I did the best I could. Believe me, I would love to take them back and re-raise them. As the man I am today,
And God uses all that, because as we just kind of just release that to him, everybody's got their own trajectory, their own sanctification journey. And like you did with your granddaughter, it's like, don't you want to get baptized today? It's like, leave it up to them. Just like your friend left it up to you, the Holy Spirit will do that. So we lead a much more relaxed and peaceful life.
If we keep our pressure off of me.
Exactly.
Keep our mouth shut and the welcome mat out, and choose relationship over being right.
Right. Absolutely.
Hey, so your tour, Are We There Yet, is still on the road. We're going to put some things in the show notes here. In fact, Julie and I, before we came on, we've already bought our tickets.
Yes.
On September the 12th, we're going to drive up the freeway to Gainesville and hear you. So if
guess
you're
who's going to be there?
Who?
Tammy.
Oh, yes. That's
no
right.
way.
What?
Yeah, she's driving me. I'm having shoulder surgery. I'm not going to be able to drive for at least a month. And that's
you going to be able to hold the microphone?
Yeah, it's like, believe me, the job is not difficult.
Okay, all right.
Matter of fact, Tammy's sister, my sister-in-law, is a realtor, and Tony Robbins spoke at some big convention 5 days after rotator cuff surgery. And he said, I'm off of pain pills for 24 hours, and then I'm going out on the second I leave this stage.
There you go.
But I'll be almost 3 weeks after surgery, so I'm hoping that if I'm in a sling, that it's at least it's not hurting, throbbing.
Yeah.
Well, we're looking forward to laughing a lot and things. We want to invite everybody to check that out. Check out your book. We're going to, again, put that in the show notes. Get a copy. Anything else we want to promote for you, Jeff?
Again, just Nashville, October 11th is a big show for me.
At the Ryman?
No, we wanted the Ryman, but they were booked out like 3 years. So we're at the Fisher Center at Belmont University. They put $100 million into that venue.
I've been over to Belmont University. In fact, for work, Nashville's in my backyard. I head back and forth to Nashville quite a bit.
Well, October 11th, Friday night. This is I'm working with Stephen Bergazzi.
Is that Nate's brother or son?
Nate's dad.
Nate's dad. Oh yeah. We saw Nate.
One of the funniest. We just played golf together. We're getting to know each other. And I told my wife, I said, I think I'd love to tour with this guy. We're just a couple of old guys, and we're, and he's really funny. And
we went and heard Nate not too long ago with
in downtown Atlanta. And his dad warmed up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the guy. We're working there.
Very
I say,
funny.
come in on Friday, watch the comedy show. Saturday, hit
Yeah.
Broadway, and then Sunday we have plenty of churches you can repent and then head home. So,
Yeah.
I
And
love
I
it.
just want to give a plug. The whole reason why Jeff is on our program is because my daughter and I saw him a year ago locally, and I was in stitches the whole time. And it, just being in this stage of life and the things that you were joking about and all that, I was just like, I got to get him on our podcast. He's so funny.
Well, Google Jeff on YouTube and also on Netflix. I mean, there's some stuff out there, and
Amazon Prime. There's 2 specials.
Yeah.
That I don't want you to think because he's on our podcast that he's some small time guy.
No.
He's big time.
He's big time.
We just happen to get lucky and blessed that he agreed to come on here.
Yes.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Yes. Well, thanks for helping our audience and fellow empty nesters pivot from parent to partnering. We're certainly been a joy having you and hearing your testimony and all about what's going on. And if you need to get a hold of us, our email address is parentpivotpodcast@gmail.com. Look down in the show notes here on YouTube, and also the podcast, and everything we've talked about will be down there. Jeff Allen, we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. We're going to laugh our heads off and looking forward to meeting Tammy because there's not very many sightings of her lately.
Not
we
at
just
all,
hear
man.
about her.
She has rules, and it's 5 days and an ocean nearby, so that narrows
Sounds
down.
like you.
That narrows down how many times she comes out with me. It's rare.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll come and I'll go and what's the word I'm looking for? Vacation with her, and we can sit on a beach together. Yeah,
that's exactly. And she doesn't swim at all. She just walks up to her knees and then picks some water up and covers, and then she goes and lays back down and reads. Or crochet. Funny. She's a big crocheter.
Oh, that's
just
something I want to learn.
2 blue ribbons at the county fair. Thank you very much.
Where are you guys located again?
They're
Nashville.
Oh, you actually live in Nashville. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you actual Nashville? Or are you Franklin or?
Well, we're in Williamson County. We're in Fairview, the redheaded stepchild of Williamson County.
Okay.
We're the last to get anything from the county. It's like, how did they wind up in our county? So we moved here 27. Real quick story about when we first moved here. I had hair then, 27 years ago. So I'm getting a haircut at the barbershop, and some guy walks in. He goes, "Bobby, is there school today?" And the barber says, "Of course there's school today." And he goes, "Then what's your boy doing over at the food line at 11 o'clock in the morning?" Anyway, he leaves me sitting in the chair, and he goes to the food line, and he drags his kid back. And he sits them down, and he goes, "I'm going to finish this boy's hair, and then you and I are going to have a conversation." I told Tammy, we moved to the right town. I said, it's so small that everybody knows everything.
Yeah.
And guys coming in and snitching on his kid, man. I thought that was great.
That's awesome.
His dream.
That's awesome.
It's that Hallmark movie dream.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, thanks for being a part of the Parent Pivot podcast. And again, we'll look forward to seeing you in Gainesville in a couple of weeks.
Thank you guys, man.
You bet. Bye-bye.